You know those recipes that just hit the spot? The ones that feel warm, cozy, comforting, like they were designed for days when you want food to hug you back. That's exactly what we are making today. This is a full-on, creamy carnivore soup with meatballs, eggs, and bacon all swimming together in one rich, silky bowl. By the end of this video, you will know exactly how to put this together. And as a little bonus, you might also pick up a new kitchen trick: how to make perfect hard-boiled eggs without water. Sounds sketchy? I thought so too, until I tested it. So stick around. Personally, I could eat this soup every night of the week, but that's me. I love comfort food. So grab a spoon, imagine that first steamy bite, and let's get started on this carnivore creamy meatball soup. It's rich, it's filling, it's got bacon. Really, what more could you ask for? Now, before we dive into the cooking, you might notice something different. I'm filming this entire video in the kitchen. No switching back and forth between the living room table and the stove like I sometimes do. Why? Well, because this recipe just feels cozy, and soup belongs in the kitchen. So let me know, do you prefer this cozy kitchen vibe, or should I bring back the mixed setting? Alright, let's talk ingredients. First up, 250 grams of ground beef. It doesn't sound like much, but trust me, it's plenty. That's enough to make a generous bowl for one person who's really hungry, or two polite bowls if you're willing to save some for tomorrow. Next up, eggs. 3 of them. One goes straight into the ground beef to help bind out our meatballs, and the other 2 are for topping at the end. Then we've got 100 grams of cream cheese. This is the magic ingredient that takes a regular broth and turns it into something smooth, rich, and cozy. And of course, a couple slices of bacon. Finally, the base. About 400 milliliters of water and 300 milliliters of my homemade bone broth. If you haven't seen that video yet, the link is down in the description. That broth is liquid gold, and it makes this soup what it is. Now, let's set up our eggs. One goes straight into the ground beef, the other 2 are going on a little adventure, because I'm not cooking them the traditional way. I'm testing out an air fryer trick. Take the 2 raw eggs and place them directly into the basket of my air fryer. No water, no boiling pot, just the eggs sitting in there like little test subjects. I set the temperature to 120 degrees Celsius and the timer for 16 minutes. That's it. If it goes according to plan, we will have perfectly hard-boiled eggs without ever touching a pot of water. To be honest, this method has betrayed me before. Last time I set the temperature way too high, and when I opened the basket, let's just say my eggs looked like they'd been shipped back from the surface of Mars. Dry, cracked, and not edible at all. But hey, cooking is about trial and error, right? Alright, back to the bowl of ground beef with the egg cracked in. This is where the magic binding happens. You just dive in with your hands or a spoon and really work that egg into the meat. The goal is to mix until it no longer feels like beef plus egg, but like one smooth mixture. The texture actually changes. It becomes sticky, almost paste-like. This part doesn't look glamorous, but that's okay, because this is where the foundation of the soup is built. The egg is what keeps the meatballs from falling apart in the broth. Without it, you would end up with a pot of random floating beef bits. Now that the mixture is ready, it's time to shape the meatballs. I am aiming for about a teaspoon of beef per ball. Small enough that they'll cook quickly in the broth, but still big enough to give you a satisfying bite. If you've got the patience of a saint, you can go even smaller and make them tiny, almost like pearl-sized. But today, I don't have that patience. I use 3 fingers, pinch a little bit of meat, and kind of pretend I'm a crab. Yeah, you heard me. I do a little crab claw grab. Scoop and roll. It looks ridiculous, but it works. Plus, if anyone walks in while you're making meatballs like this, they will either laugh or slowly back away. Either way, it's a win-win. You don't need to stress too much about perfect uniformity. Some can be a little bigger, some a little smaller. That rustic look actually makes the soup feel homemade. So make yours any size you like. Tiny cocktail-style meatballs or chunky rustic ones that feel like a whole mouthful. Either way, once they hit the broth, they will all cook through and taste fantastic. With the meatballs rolled and waiting, it's time to get the soup base going. I start by pouring about 400 ml milliliters of cold water into my small pot. That's going to act as the base liquid. But the real flavor comes next. From the freezer, I grab 2 of my broth sticks. Each one is roughly 150 milliliters, so together they add about 300 milliliters of rich, homemade bone broth to the pot. The nice thing about starting with frozen broth is that it slowly melts into the water as it heats up, layering in that deep, meaty flavor bit by bit. It's almost like building a stock from scratch, but without the hours of simmering. So we'll let the broth sticks slowly melt as the pot warms up, and pretty soon it's going to be ready to welcome those meatballs. While the broth is starting to heat up, I prepare a quick ice bath for those 2 eggs in the air fryer. Just a bowl of cold water with a handful of ice cubes. Simple but important. It cools the eggs fast, makes peeling easier, and stops them from cooking further. This is where I decided to demonstrate what you shouldn't do. The air fryer timer went off, the eggs were ready, and instead of using tongs or a spoon like a sensible human being, I reached in with my fingers. Yeah, straight out of the hot basket. Let me tell you, they were boiling hot. Not just warm, not just uncomfortable, but full on why did I do this? Hot. I lasted about a second before instinctively dropping them right into the ice bath. At least the ice was there to rescue my poor fingers immediately. So yeah, don't be like me. Use a ladle, use tongs, use anything that isn't bare skin. But hey, sometimes you've got to sacrifice for the sake of demonstration, right? Hopefully you will learn from my mistake without having to make it yourself. The pot is starting to steam now, though it hasn't reached a full boil yet. Normally I would wait until the water is bubbling like crazy before adding anything, but honestly I needed the cutting board cleared for the next step. I drop in about 60 grams of cream cheese, a little more than half of the block. The heat from the pot starts melting it almost instantly, swirling into the water and turning that plain broth into something creamy and rich. So in go the meatballs a little earlier than planned. I use a spoon to drop them in one by one, which keeps the splashing to a minimum. Trust me, you don't want to fling hot broth across your kitchen counter, or worse, onto your hands. This way they ease into the water and start warming up right away. Once the meatballs are all in, a couple pinches of salt go in as well, just to balance things out. By this point, I'm basically multitasking. The pot is steaming, meatballs are simmering, cream cheese is melting, and I'm already reaching for the bacon. It's that kind of an organized chaos that only happens in the kitchen. So while the meatballs cook, it's bacon time. Mine came frozen solid because I ordered it from an online store. When I pulled the package out, I honestly wasn't sure what the best move was. I let it quickly defrost in a bowl of water while they were still in the packaging, and I decided to just chop all 100 grams at once and deal with it head on. I sliced it into small pieces, not perfect cubes, not thin strips, just somewhere in between. Then I tossed it into a pan. And here's the thing, this bacon brought its own cooking oil. As it heated up, the fat started to render immediately. I didn't actually plan on using all of the bacon for the soup. That would have been too much. Instead, I crisped everything and then decided to save about 70 grams for tomorrow's breakfast. Because let's be honest, bacon leftovers are never a problem. With the bacon sizzling in the pan, I check back on the soup. By now the broth has come to a steady boil, steam rising in little bursts from the pot. That's my signal to turn the heat down just a notch. The goal here isn't a rolling boil that beats up the meatballs. It's a gentle simmer, so I set the timer for 10 minutes. That's the sweet spot. Long enough for the meatballs to cook through without turning rubbery, but not so long that they start to break apart and lose their shape. The cream cheese keeps melting into the broth. The meatballs bob gently on the surface and everything looks like it's coming together. And here's the part I love the most, the smell. The bacon is finished perfectly crisp and I set it aside. With that done, my attention shifts back to the eggs, which means it's the moment of truth. Did this trick actually work? Did the eggs survive the basket and came out looking like real hard-boiled eggs instead of moon rocks? Now it's time to peel them, slice one open and see if the air fryer hack finally gave me the perfect hard-boiled eggs. And the first job is peeling. Then comes the big moment. I grab one egg, slice it clean in half, and look at that. The yolk is perfectly yellow, cooked all the way through without being overdone. No gray ring, no weird dry crumbly texture, just right. We did it. This is officially my new go-to way for making hard hard-boiled eggs. Now for the second egg, I pull out this little gadget. Honestly, I don't even know what it's called. It's basically a quick slicer that dices the egg into little cubes. Super handy, even if it makes me feel like I'm cheating at knife skills. If you don't have one, you can just chop the egg however you like. Both eggs get set aside. The halves for presentation, the cubes for texture. And they will all come together when we assemble the soup. Back to the soup pot. The timer for the meatballs is almost up, just a couple of minutes left. This is where I add the rest of the cream cheese. I give it a good stir, and you can see it melting and blending in, turning the soup from a thin broth into something silky and rich. This is also my chance to do a quick taste test. I grab a spoon, blow on it because it's still bubbling hot, and give it a sip. And honestly, it's perfect. Creamy, savory, and rich without being too heavy. The broth has taken on the flavor of the beef, the cream cheese has given it body, and the salt is just right. That said, here's a tip. Always taste before adding more salt. It's easy to add a pinch, but impossible to take it back once it's in. So with the meatballs cooked, the broth perfected, and the bacon and eggs waiting, we are ready for the final assembly. I ladle in a bit less than half of the soup, making sure to scoop up plenty of meatballs along with that creamy broth. Now for the toppings, I start by scattering in a layer of crispy bacon pieces, letting them float on the surface and mingle with the broth. Then I place the egg halves on the one side of the bowl with care, yolk side up. After that, I sprinkle in the diced egg cubes. Little bursts of texture that break up the richness and make each spoonful different. And to finish, I crown it all with another shower of bacon crumbles. You've got soft meatballs, silky broth, smooth egg cubes, and the smoky crunch of bacon all layered together. It's not just a soup anymore. It's a full-on comfort experience. And now, the moment of truth. The first bite. I scoop up a meatball, some broth, and just a bit of bacon, blow on it carefully, and take that first taste. It's amazing. Cozy, hearty, filling, the meatballs are tender, the broth is creamy and rich, the eggs add a little variety, and the bacon brings that perfect smoky crunch. It's the kind of soup that makes you slow down and enjoy every spoonful. Do you like this full kitchen setting where everything happens right here by the stove, or do you prefer my older style where I would mix in the living room shots? Also, tell me this, would you eat this soup on repeat, or do you prefer lighter meals at night? For me, I could eat this 5 days in a row without getting tired of it. But maybe you're different. Share your thoughts. I read every comment. So that's it. A simple list of ingredients turned into an ultimate bowl of carnivore comfort food. Thank you so much for hanging out with me in the kitchen today. And if you enjoyed this recipe, don't forget to check out my bone broth video linked below. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't already. Like, leave a comment, and I'll see you here next time on Meet Carnivore.